Hey guys, and welcome back to Monka, where stupid shit ensues, but yesterday I finished watching a season of anime, and so I decided I kind of wanted to talk about it. Now, following the trend of recently, if you can believe it, the season of anime that I finished watching was Sailor Moon SuperS, not to be confused with Sailor Moon Super, or Sailor Moon S, which was the season that came previously. For whatever reason, they called the third season Sailor Moon S, but referred to it as Sailor Moon Super, and then called the fourth and following season Sailor Moon SuperS with an S at the end. Doesn't make sense, but you know, they did what they did. But Sailor Moon SuperS is the fourth season in the original 5-season run of Sailor Moon, airing in spring of 1995 and running for 39 episodes. The long and the short of my opinion is that Sailor Moon SuperS is a really disappointing follow-up to Sailor Moon S, and it gets pretty close to being my least favorite season so far, only eclipsed by Sailor Moon R, which was a season that I really did not enjoy. But following up Sailor Moon S, this is a very disappointing season of Sailor Moon, unfortunately, and it feels like Sailor Moon so far has kind of gone through the cycle that it's up, down, up, down. I don't know how Sailor Stars is going to be, but I'll have to see. But so what made Sailor Moon SuperS so disappointing? Well, we'll get into that when we mainly get to the story, but the first thing to mention is the visuals of Sailor Moon SuperS. The visuals have gotten an upgrade, and actually got a pretty noticeable upgrade since Sailor Moon S. It's pretty clear that the animation got a lot better and a lot crisper and a lot more quality. It looks a lot better than Sailor Moon S, despite it only releasing a year afterwards. So the visuals are done pretty well and they look pretty good. My complaint that I've had since Sailor Moon, the first season, is the fact that they like to reuse animations quite a bit. And Sailor Moon SuperS is no different. Attack animations, like the transformations, everything reused to high hell. I get it that you can't really make like a bunch of different animations. You could probably, but for Sailor Moon SuperS, a lot like the previous 3 seasons, they reuse animations a lot though. In light of that, the animation quality has gotten a lot better in Sailor Moon SuperS, so visually it looks really nice. It was really pleasant on the eyes. Now in terms of music is pretty much the standard Sailor Moon fare at this point. If you heard the previous 3 seasons, then it sounds very much similar to the previous 3 seasons. No real standout tracks, to be honest, at least for any of the new ones that they introduced. With the previous 3 seasons, there were some songs where I was like, oh, that's cool, that's crazy, you know, that's neat. In the 4th season, Sailor Moon SuperS, nothing really stood out to me, to be honest. Not even the transformation themes or anything like that. It may be at this point that they reuse so much music from the previous 3 seasons that it's just not like hitting any sort of particular way, but I really didn't, even with the new tracks, have any standouts. But the soundtrack is Sailor Moon. It's good. It's just the fact that nothing really stands out is kind of disappointing with the new tracks. Now, with the story and characters, this is pretty much the crux of all of my issues that I currently have with Sailor Moon SuperS, and why it lands as pretty much close to my least favorite season of Sailor Moon. The story really does not do anything new or unique. It just follows so much of what's like standard for Sailor Moon that it's kind of painful to a fault. Really what it is that if you watch the previous 3 seasons of Sailor Moon, you kind of understand what's up now. It's just kind of like Sailor Moon, each season kind of goes through, like, you have these villains who come in and they target people for a certain ends or means to an end. Honestly, I don't mind it, but Sailor Moon SuperS is by far the worst executed out of them, in my opinion. Pretty much the best way to explain it without spoiling it too much is that there's a being called Pegasus that possesses a item of interest to the bad guys, and so the bad guys target innocent people for their dream mirrors because Pegasus hides in dreams, and they're looking for Pegasus to obtain this powerful item. That's pretty much the story. It's, like I said, kind of like Sailor Moon. They do this a lot. I would say R is the one I really think that didn't do that all that much, but Sailor Moon was targeting innocent people for energy. Sailor Moon S was also targeting innocent people. It's just kind of the same thing. Unfortunately, this time around, it's done in such a way to where in my opinion, it's not as interesting as Sailor Moon or Sailor Moon S the way they did it. It was just a lot less interesting in my opinion. And they do this for the run of 39 episodes. Now, it starts off relatively well, and it does have good episodes because the first set of antagonists are pretty interesting, but the second set are not as interesting. But pretty much it stays decent through the first half, becomes weaker through the second half, and then at the end it picks up and becomes good again, in my opinion. Now, my biggest problem with the story is really the characters. The characters for the Sailor Guardians are fine still. They're still good and decent, and the voice acting for the Sailor Guardians is exactly the same as it has been the previous 3 seasons. Mainly the problem comes with the antagonists. Now, the antagonists by far in Sailor Moon S were the strongest point of Sailor Moon S and why Sailor Moon S was so enjoyable, as well as the original season of Sailor Moon. The antagonists and like the henchmen of the antagonists were really what made Sailor Moon S, in my opinion, stand out. The main antagonist of Sailor Moon S, you know, like the crazy mad scientist with all his crazy antics and like stupid shit, and like his subordinates with their personalities that are well developed, was the real reason why I enjoyed Sailor Moon S so much. In Sailor Moon SuperS, they really tone it back and make it kind of like the main 2 antagonists are really just kind of boring and uninteresting. Like their character setups don't really give them a really good means to their end of why they're doing what they're doing. They're just kind of doing what they're doing to be evil. And okay, I get it. That's kind of what the mad scientist does in Sailor Moon S, but they're just kind of being evil to be evil, and they really have no character development, and it's not all that interesting in my opinion. And even the subordinates are pretty weak as well. Now, the first set of subordinates are by far the best set of subordinates. They're actually kind of interesting, have character, not as much as the ones in like Sailor Moon S or the original Sailor Moon, but they still have some character. When you move to the second set of subordinates, they really just have no personality at all. I don't know how to explain it other than the second set of subordinates was really just uninteresting. Like in reality, they're portrayed as children, and that's too immoral at the end of the story. Their childlike behavior and the characteristics of them just being childish is just really unenjoyable for a set of antagonists, or I should say their subordinates, and really they have no character development that makes them evil. They're just evil for the sake of evil, and I get it, that's fine, you can have characters like that, but when you have a season like Sailor Moon S where the characters are evil but they have some sort of personality and they have a development and they have like a sort of crisis to their evil deeds, it makes the characters more interesting. It makes you be able to empathize with the villains. In Sailor Moon SuperS, if everyone just being evil and their means to an end is just uninteresting, then it just leads to a really weak story and a really weak plot and just really weak characters. Like I said, the Sailor Guardians are fine with their goofy ass tropes, you know, Usagi's still stupid, Rei's still smart as hell, Minako is, I don't even know how to explain her, she's just Minako. The Sailor Guardians are fine, like I said, the voice actors are fine as well, but the villains are just so weak. With the weak story combined with those weak villains, you just end up with just kind of mishmash of a weak ass story. Nothing's wrong with the voice actors for the villains, but just their characters are uninteresting, and it's built around an uninteresting story to the point where it's just kind of boring, especially compared to the previous seasons. You can kind of forgive the first season of Sailor Moon for being just kind of like a generic superhero movie, whatever the hell you want to call it, but that's just kind of the first season of Sailor Moon. They were building up what was to come. When you have that for the 4th season, by then you're expecting more from everything, I suppose, and when it doesn't bring that more, it just kind of underwhelms. But the story overall is just kind of really shallow and uninteresting, and it really feels like the previous seasons of Sailor Moon, so it's just getting redundant at this point. I kind of harped on Sailor Moon R for doing something different, but at least it still did something slightly different, despite still being my least favorite season of Sailor Moon. It tried to do something different or interesting, and with Sailor Moon S, even though it was kind of pursuing the same thing as Sailor Moon, the villains were really interesting, and the story still kept momentum by kind of having that interest intact, despite kind of falling apart at the end. But Sailor Moon SuperS was really weak in the story and characters department. It kind of seems like since I already started Sailor Stars, it seems like it was kind of just building up to the 5th season, which is Sailor Stars, to kind of have all the characters and motivations in place to set up that season. Whether Sailor Stars comes through and does well with all that buildup is to be seen, but Sailor Moon SuperS as a season of Sailor Moon really suffers from that, and overall it's by far the story and the characters that I enjoyed the least. But overall, Sailor Moon SuperS really underwhelmed me. I thought it was fine. It's okay. It's like maybe a 5 out of 10 if I had to get a score to it, but it's just really underwhelming following Sailor Moon S. The villains are really uninteresting. The story just doesn't do a lot, to be honest, and just is alright at best. I found some parts of it to be like really, like there were some really good episodes in here, don't get me wrong. Like there were some really enjoyable episodes, but everything comes together. Besides the update and the animation style, everything just felt kind of underwhelming to me. If you're gonna watch Sailor Moon, obviously you kind of want to watch it because Sailor Stars is gonna come through and build on that. But as a season of Sailor Moon, I found this very underwhelming, and I enjoyed it enough to watch it all the way through, but it was just really underwhelming to me. But thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay chill.